Hey guys, my name is Mario Zelaya and I'm the founder of the World Axe Throwing League. We are very close partners of AxeThrowingInsurance.com. They're the largest insurance brokerage for axe throwing facilities in the world. And we work very closely with them to develop certain programs in order for you to stay safe and in order for you to get the best possible coverage while also getting the best possible price. Now, part of what we're going to do in this video is we're going to explain to you how we keep venues and venue owners safe with the rules that WATL has created. Now, some of these aren't rules, some of them are best practices, and I'm going to dive into the first one that's going to talk about the overall infrastructure of the facilities and the cages. So the first and most important part of the facility is making sure you built it properly. And properly means that you have enough distance from the target to where you're throwing, and it also allows egress behind the throwers. So when people are throwing behind, no axe will ever hit a thrower as they're walking by. That's very important. So axe throwing, we throw with regular hatchets from 12 feet. Now we have big axe rules where there's 15 and 17 feet. We added these in later. A facility like this is one of the original axe throwing facilities in the world. So when we originally started it, we were only throwing from 12 feet. The back wall goes approximately 23, 24 feet, which is great when it was hatchet. When we introduced big axe, we had to introduce new rules that when people were throwing the big axe, no egress could happen at that moment in time. So that's very important to note that if you're offering a big axe experience or big axe leagues, that it is important that you have slightly more than 23, 24 feet if you want people to walk safely behind the throwers. The other thing that we look at is the cages. You'll notice these cages are the one consistent denominator across all axe throwing facilities because this protects the lanes from any axes ricocheting from one side to the other. You'll notice too, the thing that's important is this part above. There are cages that block the height of the cages as well. That means if an axe were to go upwards, it will not go over this cage. There are some facilities that we have seen that don't have those cages. We strongly recommend that you cover it because you're basically trying to create a smaller boxed area. So any axes, anything that ricochets is contained within this box. And that's why no one in the industry has actually been hurt or there has been no insurance claim from the actual throwing element of throwing axes. So it all ties back to the overall infrastructure, to the cages, to the way they're built. You know, we personally decided to burn some of these wooden panels to give it a nicer look. You know, we painted it black. The one thing that is important about the cages is to make sure that the steel gauge is thick enough where the axe won't rip through it. And a quick way of doing it is just to take a simple WATL axe, which is sharp, and just hammer it through and see if it breaks. These ones don't break. These ones have been around for years now and they've held up extremely well. The next thing we're going to talk about is some of the certification programs that WATL has. We have coach certifications and we have judge certifications. The judge certifications are really more built around leagues and league management in order for you to fully understand the rules of how the leagues work at the World Axe Throwing League. The coach certification is something that actually should apply and should be done by all venues. Whether or not you're a WATL member, it is important for you to know from the very beginning the best practices of being a coach. That includes the golden rules of throw together, retrieve together. That means that if I throw an axe, I'm not going to go ahead and pick up my axe if it's on the ground if that other person hasn't thrown yet. It's important that coach management happens from the very beginning and you do have proper training. That's what that coach certification process is there for. There's other important things that include distances, throwing, making sure that we're not throwing it as hard as we can because frankly speaking, the axes, especially WATL ones, they're designed for axe throwing. They're not regular hardware store hatchets. You cannot use regular hardware store hatchets without significant modifications and sharpening them in order for them to work because our axes come sharp that don't require much force. That was an extremely light flick and that's basically what we want your coaches to teach the general public, that they don't have to throw it like a hammer in order to stick. That ties into the next element that I'm going to talk about, which is management of all your assets and key asset management. So we're not going to talk quickly about key asset management or specifically equipment management. Now, you got to make sure that your axes are consistently sharp. They come sharp out of the box from WATL, but over time, and we're talking about after thousands of throws, they may require some sharpening. And so Overall, I mean, this axe has actually been in this facility, I think, for almost 2 years. This was an initial prototype that we made for this axe, which I believe is now the Spitfire. You'll see there's a ton of wear and tear on this axe, but it has lasted an extremely long time because of the way we've designed it. But you'll notice there's tape on it. The tape is not for styling, because over time there might be nicks that might happen either on the wood or on the fiberglass handle that may cause little cuts. You want to make sure that your customers don't get those little cuts. It's not something that's going to injure them where they would require stitches or anything like that, but it will enhance their experience knowing that they have something that they can throw. Again, part of the equipment management allows you to quickly just throw the axe and have it stick without needing much force. And that is very important in order to keep this whole industry safe. The other part that is important, which isn't necessarily equipment, is the wood. The wood is important to make sure that you're using the right kind of wood. The whole industry, prior to bad axe throwing, actually just used regular pine wood. Bad axe throwing was introduced to cottonwood in late 2017, early 2018, where cottonwood, it heals extremely well and it's really soft, it comes wet. It doesn't require much force for the axe to stick. Traditionally speaking, these boards will last 5 to 6 times longer than the traditional SPF cling-dried wood that you would find in your hardware stores. So that's why it's important to make sure that you're either using a poplar or cottonwood, because that will make sure that your customers aren't throwing as hard as they can just to get the axe to stick. Again, when you combine the sharpness of the axes and maintaining the equipment, as well as using the proper wood, you'll have a positive experience with your customers where they're consistently sticking the axes. For those who are opening up a brand new facility and you're worried about not knowing the ins and outs of how to train your staff, what to look for, you've done as much research as you can looking at videos online, but you still need more help, WATL has a WATL certified trainer program. That means a trainer will come out to your facility and train your staff throughout the whole weekend, and they will tell you all the ins and outs of axe throwing, how to maintain the wood, how to get the most out of the experience, how coaches can generate more revenue for your business, and how they can generate more tips for themselves. The particular trainer has trained, I believe, over 40 facilities so far. Every single piece of feedback we've ever heard is that they are amazing. This specific trainer, that is the WATL certified trainer, is named Miguel, and Miguel owns, I believe, 3 facilities of his own, and he has been in the axe throwing industry, I believe, since 2018, maybe even 2017. So he's been here since the very beginning, and he's managed facilities to now getting to a point where he owns several of his own. So you have not only a highly qualified owner, a trainer, but someone who is also a top ranked and well-respected thrower. And he will teach you the physics of how to make it easy to stick an axe. So that is a part of the WATL Trainer Certified program. Basically, we have that program available for our WATL affiliates. The one thing I haven't talked about yet is liquor and serving liquor or alcohol in general. So whether you're doing BYOB or whether you have a bar and you're serving beer, alcohol of any sort, you will be required to get some sort of tips training or some sort of a governmental training program. What that means, and this is very important, whether you're serving the alcohol or even if it's not a bartender it's serving an alcohol and it's a coach, it's important that you get that training so then you can tell whether someone's intoxicated. The training is absolutely phenomenal. I've been through it myself. We get our coaches to do it. In certain cities, our coaches are actually mandated to get it, even though we're not serving alcohol. Every county, every province, every state is completely different. Follow your local guidelines, and I strongly encourage the moment alcohol is involved, whether it's BYOB or whether it's being served, that this training and this certification gets done locally or at the county level or at the provincial or state level. The final thing we're going to talk about are knives. Now, these are WKTL certified knives. They are in fact Toro knives, and most WATL facilities are also members of WKTL. That's the World Knife Throwing League. Now, the reason knife throwing has exploded recently is because the infrastructure is already set in place for WATL. Part of setting that infrastructure, which I talked about, including the cages, includes making knives that are suitable for throwing. When I first started out and I started Bad Axe, I wanted to actually get knife throwing. And this was back in 2017, 2018. Very, very early on, I think maybe even 2016. Now, the knives that we ordered some of the best ones online that we found at the time with the highest ratings, and they ricocheted a lot. And the biggest concern is not only did they ricochet, they would ricochet through the fencing. And that was a major issue. And part of the way we were able to get knife throwing insured, which previously was not insured, is to make knives that ricochet a lot less, that have guards, that do not go through the fencing. That's why they look like mini swords. And so WKTL has done a great job of building up a great lineup of knives. These are the ones that are allowed in league. We strongly recommend that only knives that do not go through cages are utilized. And more importantly, that you're using larger, heavier knives, so in case there is a ricochet, it doesn't bounce side to side. It also allows for you not to have to be so close. The general rule of thumb is, if you have a short knife, you're probably going to be throwing it from about 6 feet. That is way too close. WKTL rules and the WKTL knives, or certified knives, are actually designed to be thrown from 10 feet. And then the double rotation is from, at minimum, 15 feet or even up, even further back. Now, there are other styles of knives that Toro does make. For example, this one's called the Besito, and this one's the Besito Slim. Both of these knives can also be thrown from the same distance, but you'll see with the size, they are not going to go through the cages. And that's part of why these knives are also allowed and recommended within facilities, because it adds to the axe throwing experience. Now, when you throw them, it doesn't require much force either. It's important that when you are doing knife throwing in your facilities, that you are using the correct equipment, you do have the proper setup to allow you to succeed without having to worry about any sort of liability. So what I've done is I've tried to give a brief and concise overview of the industry, safety and best practices, how to make sure you get the most out of your insurance, and how you get the most out of your business so you keep yourself and your customers and your employees safe. Thank you for watching, everyone. For more information, please visit axethrowinginsurance.com or worldaxethrowingleague.com. Thank you very much for watching.